let me into my zone. Please don't let me into my zone. 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 Please don't let me.
Well, welcome back to Krown's Kiddo Cave, waking up for a little bit of an earlier upload on this lovely Thursday morning from a very overcast Helsinki, Finland. And imagine my surprise going to bed when Bitcoin's about $10,200, waking up and what's this $1,000 dildo in my face to wake up to? Absolutely beautiful. Although kicked out of my positions that I held from the Twitch stream a couple days ago. I'll go over that a little bit later in this video. And I also want to speak towards the relationship to what we see right now with regards to what happened over the weekend. Now, we'll obviously go into much more of a deep dive, but I want to kind of allude to it right now in the sense that when we see price action like we saw last night on a weekday, that's what I mean by kind of trusting it a little bit more, in the sense that now I actually do think that there's a little bit of a chance of potentially reversal here. Now, we'll obviously discuss exactly what the kind of key critical areas of that are, but this price action, again, happening during the weeks, during the regular trading week, is now, I do believe, a little bit of a threat. So with all of that said, I want to wish you the best, the happiest of the happiest, and say that Twitch stream is going to be going later tonight, which I'm really excited about, and perhaps we might even catch some very cool price action on there. And with that said, let's get into the live scene right over here, or actually, sorry, before that, let's actually go to the Krown trading application, which is 100% free, and just go on and grab it at app.krowntrading.net. And what do you know, 200 fucking million shaved off the open interest as soon as I wake up. Absolutely beautiful, and perhaps precipitating this next big movement, which we'll discuss, of course, as well once we get into the actual charts. But as it stands right now, Bitcoin dominance still more or less steady. So alts kind of holding their value versus Satoshis, which is interesting, and does tell me that we're going to go into a little bit more of a long form consolidation within this region. And it's not really the time to be like super aggressive with calling major breakouts or major breakdowns. It's time to be looking for a little bit of sideways price action. So with all of that said, and keeping that in the back of our mind's eyes, and seeing the open interest finally starting to get shaved off a little bit, let's go check out the charts and look at this. Bitcoin on a daily, we technically did break the daily 21 exponential moving average right here. That's not the, it obviously isn't good, but looking at this right here, still the levels that I've been speaking about for the last, I mean, realistically 3 weeks is very much the same. The macro level being about 9550 to 9600 on a daily total close. 12-hour could also work as well. 4-hour below about 9500 would probably do it, but as it stands right here, we are still closing right above that critical support. So I'm gonna put on the drawing tools. Sorry, I guess this is my Bitstamp chart, but it operates about the same. Blue box territory, providing the peace and prosperity for this asset, saving it for the time being. But let's go over here to our BitMexican chart. Go down to the lower term time frames with that in mind. And I do want to say that as long as Bitcoin's back in this blue box territory, I actually did put on the same trade that I tried a few days ago, right in over here. I longed the blue box when I woke up. We're at around 95.50, and I'm not saying that it's 100% guaranteed to work out, but I will take that trade as many times as it gives it to me, because more often than not, it's going to work out in my favor for at the very least a nice little scalp. So going back to this one right over here, if you went on the Twitch stream, I think it was 2 days ago. This was the 18th of February. Took a long right around like 96.50ish region, let go of some right around 98.50, then 10,000, and then I put a stop in for the rest right below 10,000 when I went to sleep last night. So I obviously got kicked out of that, and then I just put on the same position right over here. And you know what, if this one ends up going against me, that's okay, as well, overall I won't be risking all that much in order to find out if this trade's going to work in my favor or not. Just a 4-hour total closure below the bottom side of this blue box territory would be good enough to get me out of my position, and then go back to the drawing board. But of course, because this area is such a big pivot on the market right now, I would put really significant importance on any sort of price action that's kind of consolidating within this region, just because major massive moves are going to be designed from this region. Now, I'm sure that bulls are going to be looking at this as some sort of like a falling channel forming right now, which technically you do kind of have in, to be fair. However, bears do have something going for them as well. We actually do have a downtrend now confirmed on a daily for the first time since I think since the switch around. For the first time since switch around from about 7,500 to 7,600 on this girthy green dildo right over here. So to me, you can see both sides, of course, and now we kind of look to the momentum oscillators and then the expected moves, try to kind of come up with the biases for this. So I want to first go into this saying that while I will present some bearish things, as I have been for the past few days, I still hold on to what I've been saying for all the bearish things. I'm not looking for that next like big moving down a price price action until we actually break 9600, 9550 on a higher time frame, or at the very least a medium time frame like a 12-hour. If that does happen, I'd look for another test back down here to about 9200, which actually we did pretty much test yesterday night, and the bounce pretty damn good. I actually do think that it would bounce again here in this in this $9,200 region. However, I do not think that that bounce would get I don't think that that bounce would get continuation to the upside. I think it would just be another lower high. Breaking the 9600 area is the key critical component. Below there, it's for at least for myself, I'm no longer bullish from medium and higher time frame perspectives, and of course lower time frames, they're going to ebb and flow here and there, but that's a triggering point for me. Just like this blue box territory right on over here to the upside was kind of my area of caution to the upside. I can't really get too bullish short, medium, and long term as long as we're below there. This one operates the same thing for for the downside. So it's a game of blue fucking boxes right now is what it is. And at the end of the day, until we get a break outside of this range. And we had a great discussion on this in the program Discord yesterday. But basically, the idea is people were asking, is consolidating above $10,000 a good a good thing? No, it doesn't really mean anything. The blue boxes are what means something. So above 10.2, or on a higher time frame close, or above 10.4 on like a 4-hour close, that's when I start to get bullish for that next move up to 10.9 to 11,000. Still in the cards, to be fair. And by the same token, 95.50 to 9600 on a medium and higher time frame closure, that's when I start to get bearish. At the very least, down to 9200, probably bounce there. We'll kind of check out the bounce, and then I look for continuation, extremely likely to the middle of the $8,000 level. So that's what's at stake right now. I still think that we're looking at $1,000 plus move from this price point, no matter which way you look at it, whether you're bearish or bullish, which is also going to align with the current open interest that's still available. Of course, still 1.3 billion is of interest here, no pun intended. My point is that we have enough rocket fuel to actually shatter one of these regions. The thing is that with Binance running out of margin borrowing for Tether to buy Bitcoin, that would be a little more on the bearish side, I suppose. If you actually do want to look at the underlying market dynamics, which in that case do matter, as Binance does seem to drive a lot of volume in this market. But looking at things right now, we can start to look at our momentum oscillators and see what's going on. So first things first, what do I notice right here? We do see that daily Stokes headed pretty nose-divingly down. More importantly, though, they're going to break that same trend line that we had in here yesterday. Sorry, where? Hey, yeah, there it is, right around here. Sorry, this guy right here, not relevant. I'm talking about this guy right here. Now, of course, it is intraday action, but I would say that the way that price action is kind of operating right now, anywhere below 9,600 will be an official break below. Now, here's the thing. While that is in the cards, I do want to remind myself that our lower term timeframes are going to be flip-flopping around quite a bit, but I would still be looking for a bounce off this region, and we do have some bullish divergence forming on the lower term timeframes, it looks like, if we can confirm a local low here. How do we confirm a local low? Well, we need a clear stop and reverse. We don't necessarily have that just yet. We have a little bit of sideways price action, but if it can confirm a local low, and I would say that would be likely confirmed by getting back above 9,700 on at the very least a 2-hour delta closure, then yes, we will have bullish divergence play out on this baby, and I do believe that we would see another attempt back up to about 9850, 9900-ish region. As long as, the longer that Bitcoin can go sideways here, the better it'll look, as all lower time frame momentum oscillators will have a chance to cool off. But here's the thing, looking at 4-hour Stochastic volatility percentile, we are very red right here. So it would suggest that we go into a little bit of a phase of contraction, and we do see that 4-hour Stokes coming down at the same time. Let me get rid of this guy. That was relevant to the daily, I believe it was. And let's see how the other lower term time frames kind of agreeing, and see if we can come up with anything that's of interest in this region. We do see 3-hour Stochastic volatility percentile also extremely red. Tells me that we're probably going to go into a little bit of consolidation here, so a little bit of sideways here, no matter what, if you're bullish or bearish. But this question is, can the bulls hold it long enough for at the very least another relief bounce, which would probably bring us back around this level right here, probably 99.50 if I had to call it right now. But I don't think that's happening I don't think that's happening like today, or at least not before I make another video or get on Twitch live stream later tonight. So I'm not in a hurry to kind of call something like that. 2-hour has the same sort of things forming right here. We do have 2-hour bullish divergence potentially in play. We also do have a nice trend line forming in this region as well. And what do you know? Looking at price action right here, I would say back above about 96.50, especially especially on a 2-hour doodle closure, we likely will confirm this at the very least as a local low. So I would be expecting at the very least another, another try back into like the 9900-ish region, 9950 right here, and just kind of go level by level. Anyways, speaking of level by level, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get rid of this same area that we had in over the past few days. It's still relevant, of course, but the problem is that it doesn't really do too much for price action, even on lower term timeframes. I believe that only on the lower term timeframes, these are the relevant levels, for trading right now. You could certainly say that 9850 is in there as well, but then we're just gonna have too many fucking lines, and it just makes it more convoluted, not really helpful for trading. More importantly, changes of behaviors on the lower term timeframes happen above 9950, and well, other than that, the only major things on the board are the macro areas. So we are at a pivotal moment right now, because we likely will be looking at this next big move, probably within less than a week. And I'll look at that and I'll kind of show where I'm getting that from after we go over these lower term timeframes. But hourly looks to me like it's confirming a local low, so I do like that. So of course, you got to start off low to high. And what do you see? We do have a little bit of bullish evidence forming here as well. Not going all the way back on over here. Although when we go to our, when we went to the other semi-higher timeframes in relationship to the hourly, the bullish evidence was present there, but we even have it present between the most recent price action right here. So I do think that Bitcoin's going to bounce off this area, at the very least give a test towards 9,800. That's what I could hold on to right now, and then that's where I'd probably look for a short-term pullback off that region. We're talking about very, 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 very low time frame price action. But yes, I do think that Bitcoin's going to bounce off here intraday. We'll probably see back up towards 9,800, and then I would want to kind of see how it reacts from there. I'd imagine the first pass will be pushed back, but that's not a death sentence for right now. That wouldn't really even do all that much for the lower term timeframes, as I said. But a $200 move in the play, and that's essentially what I'll be looking for on this position that I'm currently in. And hopefully, if things go a little bit better, I'd be happy to hold it if we can just confirm any sort of a 2-hour total closure back of about 99.50 and get back. And then it's just a game of blue boxes. I mean, go from one blue box to the next. That's really all that it's had to be most recently. And same thing on the hourly historical volatility percentile as well. We are contracting, so all lower term timeframes getting very, very hot, which tells us we're about to go into a contraction phase. We already have the hourly confirming a local low, and I do believe that will be the longer that we just kind of go sideways here, that's going to be mediated and mirrored by the other semi higher timeframes. Again, in relationship to the hourly, I'm not saying that 2, 3 hour and 4 hour are high timeframes at all, but they do have it is like a domino effect. And more importantly, once we start to get bullish divergence on a 4 hour, those typically do get some nice plays. So at that point, I would be looking back up towards realistically like 99.50-ish region, and probably reassess from that area. So right now, Bitcoin's in just whoa, Jesus fucking Christ. Hey, good to meet you, Claude. Scared the shit out of me, man. Anyways, anyway, God damn it. That was actually like really frightening. Need to turn down the sound, the volume on this computer. Anyways, so that's what I'm looking at, the lower term timeframes. Going over here to the 12-hour, I haven't checked out this one just yet. This is a completely fresh look on the charts for me today. And what do we see here? Potential to make bullish divergence as well, but we'll need to just essentially not break down below this blue box territory. Those we will get new lows in line with RSI making new lows. So it all depends on this blue box right here. If we break this, coming back down to 9,200, extremely likely, probably bounce there, and then continuation. If we just hold here, I'll just look for it to float back up, test around 99.50. I do think that 9,800 is extremely likely, even if it's regardless of how bearish or bullish I am in this region. But that's kind of like the area of fuck for the lower term timeframes. And what do you know? 12-hour Stokes are actually still up right here. So I'm not necessarily this isn't like the exact same this is not the exact setup that I'd be looking for if this is going to have further continuation to the downside. I would have really expected us to actually break this area with force yesterday night when it actually had a chance. But Doesn't mean that it can't happen right here. It's just I'd still, I still have a little bit of reservations with this price action until we get a clear and obvious signal. Right now, it's just liquidating all of the like more than 10x leveraged people to the upside and the downside. It's absolutely brutal, but hey, as a trader, that's why we love Bitcoin. There's so much volatility, which creates so much opportunity. For the hodlers right here, this is probably just frustrating. Well, then again, there's probably like some hodlers who got in below like $500 on Bitcoin. And they're just they laugh at this kind of shit, and that's fair enough. You're a legend, but it's not really relevant to you. Anyways, okay, what else do we want to talk about here? Even on the 12-hour, we're actually seeing historic volatility percentile getting really ramped up. So that is telling me that when Bitcoin's trying to hang on to a critical macro support, it tells me don't get too bearish just yet, because in order to have the momentum to break an area like this, I'd really want to see historical volatility percentile in an expansion phase on these medium and higher time frames, and we actually don't really see that. I mean, it has expanded, but this expansion is coming right at a test that has actually been bought up above that critical support. So I'm still a little bit hesitant to get bearish in this region. Doesn't mean that I can't. It's just that same area that I've been looking for the last 3 weeks is what I'm sticking to, and I feel quite confident on that. I know that sort of analysis is going to piss off a lot of people, and that's fair enough. I totally understand that people don't want to hear that Bitcoin's probably just going to play in a range, but at the end of the day, that's usually what's happening most of the time. Anyways, looking at the 2-day right here, we have yet again confirmed an absolute outlier of low historical volatility percentile, which tells me that the big move is still yet to come. Big move meaning we are either at the precipice of a major shatter to the downside, and I would say probably like $1,000 from this current price point, or to the upside, filling out the range, back up to 10,200, and that would obviously be a lot more healthy for Bitcoin if we could actually just fill out that range to the upside. It would imply that this is still to be considered a bullish consolidation. And to be fair, I do. It's going to sound silly to say after $1,000 drop, but I do consider this still first and foremost a bullish consolidation, as long as it's creating another higher low above 9,600 on a 2-day. But like I said, the daily is in a downtrend now officially, and that is the first real threat that I've seen to this rally. And I want to kind of speak towards the relationship between the weekend price action and what we're seeing right now. So over the weekend, I was saying all sorts of things like I don't really trust weekend price action, and I look for that weekend price action to be reverted when the week start, when the trading week starts, and I 100% stand by that. And let me explain. I know that people are going to be like really, really pissed off by this, because we still get like ridiculous price action during the week. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that anytime you have a reversal over the weekend, typically when the weekday trading opens back up, price action will revert back to where we were beforehand, and then the real game continues. And in this case, that's actually exactly what happened. We looking at CME chart right over here, we open about about $800 lower than we closed on Friday, immediately pump back up, fill the gap, and then boom, back down. So to me, that is exactly what we're talking about. And more importantly, it does give more validity to what we're looking at for like an actual reversal now, because now we have the daily technically in a downtrend, although it's not in a downtrend on CMEs. And I do think that is relevant to discuss right here. We actually don't have a downtrend in CMEs just yet on the daily. It is present on spot price action. And of course, I do put more weight on CMEs here. So we won't really be making a lower low, at the very least a downtrend on CMEs until Bitcoin starts closing daily totals below 9,200, and that is actually exactly where the 200 simple is on CMEs as well. So I'm not really. It does make it difficult for me to get like macro bearish. As long as we're doing something like that, but this also does look, toppy as well. So there, the potential is there, and I would say that now that we've gotten this rejection coming in from that level and creating that downtrend, and seeing some of the higher time frame momentum oscillators turn down as well, as open interest is still relatively high and historical volatility percentile is relatively low on our higher time frames, that would suggest that the reversal actually could be real in this range right now. I think it was a pretty easy and obvious call when I came into this week, and I said I don't expect a continuation of the downside right here. I expect us to pump back up and kind of go back to where we left off on Friday. Now that has been rejected, that whole scenario is now what we're looking at. Anyways, my point is that now there actually is a real threat of this. Anyways, looking at CMEs for a second here. Still do want to say though, weekly CMEs are going to look a lot more toppy here, to be fair. This is now it's not just kind of, but this is more or less confirmed as a local high on the weekly. The question is, are we going to come back down and set in a lower low? At this point, we're probably going to set a higher low, but that would still come in around like the mid to high 8,000s region, right around here. Do you see a lot of support coming in that region? But all I can really focus on, and what this really kind of implies at the current moment in time, is that this guy right here closing outside the top trailing band, that was a pretty nasty fake out, especially if we close red on the week, anywhere below about 9,600. That would actually look like a weekly reversal. And a weekly reversal, looking for hopefully a higher lows for the bulls, and a lower low would be had anywhere below about 8,500. So I do believe that at the very least, if we did come from the weekly below about 9,600, if we got that next leg down, very, 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 very likely Bitcoin's going to search for at the very least a higher low, or at least attempt a higher low on the weekly. Further solidifying this as an uptrend, somewhere in the mid to upper 8,000s, like 85 to 8,800 is kind of where I have my eyes angled towards. We do see that the yellow 21 exponential moving average is coming in that region. We do see that the red 10 simple is looking across the upside of it, which is more or less good. And we do see that the 20 simple, this gray line, you can barely see it right back there. Let me actually zero in on it. Is going to be outlining like the bottom end of that region around 8,500. So anywhere between about 85 to 86-ish region, 87. Probably will attempt a higher low there, but still a little bit well and far away. And that is all coming on the back of a major assumption that I'm making, that 9,600 actually breaks. When going back to it right on over here, I do want to discuss that this cross that we are going to be looking at very, 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 very likely by end of week between the red 10 simple and the yellow 21. Let me actually just zero down all these major moving averages onto these babies right here. There we go. I started drinking this new brand of coffee, and I don't feel like it's good. I feel like my brain's actually a little bit slower after drinking it. Anyways, looking at this right here, we do see that anytime we've gotten the bullish cross of this, we do get a nice test down into that region. Typically speaking, and that is actually usually a more or less healthy thing long term. But when we're talking about a weekly, that can certainly include thousands of dollars of price action, which might not be so healthy for short term and over leveraged traders. Anyways, looking at this right here, right after the cross, Bitcoin does have a major move to the upside, and it gets shoved back down about 42%. Testing it, it doesn't need to test exactly where the 10 simple is, but I do consider this a test of the of the cross itself. And what do you know? It's quite literally a very, very violent move to the downside, a 40% move. That's the only example that we have right there. What's the most recent one? Yeah, we have one right around here as well. You do see that Bitcoin on this one consolidating at a high level alongside that $6,000 resistance, getting knocked back about 12% right here as they cross. And then boom, nice move to the upside. I want to check out a few more if we can find a few more examples. We get this test right here. This guy coming in at the tune of about 20% move down. That it doesn't even look that bad, but that is a 20% move right there, and 20% move is always a 20% move. This guy right in over here talking about a 17.25% move from top to bottom, meeting the cross, and that one actually ended up being a failure, complete fake out. And then other than that, not really anything on the board to discuss. So what we could be looking at, and I do want to see if this kind of matches up with the past historical relevancy of this cross, is, on average, we've seen about like 15 to 20% drop down from the prior high to the next local low as this cross typically happens. And what do you know right here, when we shave off about 15 to, this is like right in the middle, like 17.5%. What do you know? Like where is Bitcoin price action? Right around 8,700. So I'd imagine that 20% is probably maybe like 84, 85. Yeah, about 84. So somewhere in that range would be reasonable, again, if Bitcoin does break to the downside. So if Bitcoin does break down below 9,600, I don't think that we're just going to stop at 9,200. I do think that Bitcoin tries to bounce there, but ultimately very, 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 very likely to get continuation at the very least to about 85 to 8,600-ish region, at which point I'd be looking for a bounce off the yellow 21 exponential moving average. And that is going to be the key critical ingredient to find out if this rally is really real, in my opinion, if this reversal is really real. Now, I do think that it's real. I do think that things are more or less fine here longer term, but shorter term, that can ebb and flow quite a bit. But looking at this right now, sorry, hold on there. I just had a massive loss of train of thought. Yes, that's what I want to talk about. Yeah, so I wanted to get on over here and check out the 2-day historical volatility percentile and remind myself about this analysis as well that we've been showing for the last few days. So and again, this all comes on the assumption that 9600 breaks. I just want to show what I'd be looking at the very least if 9600 breaks. And looking at 2-day historical volatility percentile, we are incredibly low, in the same areas that haven't been seen since November 2018. That was the break from 6,000 to 3,000 right here. Since September 2018, that was this break all the way down pretty much immediately. That was this move right here in July 2018, all the way from 63 to 83, $2,000 move, pretty damn nice. That was this move right here, all the way from 8,800 down to 6,000 essentially. And we could go over a few other examples in the past, but more or less the same sort of the same sort of results. Anyways, my point is that we do have the same sort of reads on our higher time frames historical volatility percentiles that has been indicative of multi-$1,000 move coming most likely. That paired up with the fact that open interest is so damn high, and it's too damn high. And I'm curious what the funny rate on BitMEX would be right now. Actually, don't have it up, and but I would imagine that it's probably more or less neutral right now. But anyways, looking at momentum oscillators on top of that, we have found that in the past, anytime that we've had this low of a volatility read plus, for example, a 2-day Stokes kind of turning that same direction, that has usually gone the direction pretty much every time. And then coupled up with RSI's relationship to exponential, we have seen, that be strengthened essentially in the same direction. So what I want to kind of relate now is we'll go through it. I don't want to go through like the whole explanation of it because I've been doing this for like the last few days. I didn't talk about it yesterday, but the last few days it's more or less the same. But what I'm looking for is that historical volatility percentile, extremely low read on the 2-day, and then I'm coupled that up with a look at the 2-day Stokes and then the RSI, which zone is trading in, plus its relationship to the exponential on it. So let's go right on over here. Looking at the past examples, what do you know? Our last example was right before the 6,000 to 3,000 breakdown, and we do see that 2-day Stokes in this region were more or less in the bearish control zone. They were floating around quite a bit. So hard to really get too much off of this. In fact, I'd say that this is more or less, more or less on the neutral side. I wouldn't have considered that neither bullish nor bearish point. It was cutting it a little bit too close. There was nothing obvious there, but what was obvious was 2-day RSI actually breaking the exponential a few days before this major move down from about 65 to 31. So that to me was, what was the obvious thing right there. The other two metrics not really given all that much information, but just having that alone does provide a good enough bias for price action. Looking at the same thing right on over here, giving another example, we do see that not only do we have a little bit of bullish divergence coming off this low, but you do see that Bitcoin regain the exponential, especially on this tick right here, rejecting the prior low, and of course 2-day Stokes pointed up at the same time. That's good enough for, a bias to the upside, especially coming from that direction. And what do you know, $2,000 move to the upside. Anyways, time before that was good old consensus right on over here in May 2018. And what do you know, same sort of thing, right? 2-day RSI is playing below the exponential, so I'd say that would be a point for the bears. And we got 2-day Stokes coming all the way down from the same sort of territory right here. And that's good enough for about a $3,000 move to the downside. Maybe one more example if we can find an easy one. Do we have one right here perhaps? Yeah, we got one right here. Same thing, to the upside. Bitcoin regains the exponential on the RSI, have a little bit of bullish divergence coming off the lows there as well. Sorry, not on this time frame, but actually shown on a daily. Anyways, 2-day Stokes started to turn back up at that exact same time, a few days before the actual melt up. Happening right around here if I had to kind of nail it down, and I'm really trying to get it pixel by pixel, but you can see that we just generally floated upwards and onwards from that point. So not as sexy, not as like a stark turn, but did give the overall direction relatively well. Anyways, let's match that up with how we're doing right now. 2-day RSI is trading below the exponential right here. Not a death sentence in and of itself, and could also be in the midst of making hidden bullish divergence as well. It's not the worst sign just yet, but 2-day Stokes coming down pretty aggressively from this upper echelon has in the past always aligned with those moves going to the downside. So fair enough, fair enough. And what I would kind of be expecting if we are going to be running off the 2-day is that we're probably doing something like this coming from the lows. We're probably going to meet this trend line long term, connected with our October 2019 lows, our hold on, let me check this out. Yeah, this low right here, this low right here. Or is it, sorry, no, it's this low right here. Okay, yeah, the actual low that we put in thus far, December 2019, and then more recently, or sorry, not happening just yet, but that would be the next kind of evolution from that test. Anyways, my point is that, if I am going to be bearish, that's probably the most damning thing. And yes, that would probably be good enough for, at the very least, a test down to the mid 8,000s, and then we'll kind of come back and reassess from there. But I want to be very, 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 very direct in saying this. I can't repeat this enough. I'm not looking for any of that shit to happen as long as Bitcoin doesn't break 9,600 on like a 12-hour close, let's call it. If that does happen, then yeah, I'd be happy to get bearish. But for now, I'm actually, like I said, I'm long again, and I'm looking for a bounce off this region. And I do think that at the very least, we'll tag like 9,800 and then decide from there. Anyways, what else we want to talk about? It's already been 30 minutes and I've only been speaking about Bitcoin. Holy shit. I'm curious. I haven't looked at this in a while either. Let's look at the daily Trollinger Bands, how are these guys operating right now? And we actually did break the median Trollinger Band to the downside. Not good. All alongside the 21 exponential moving average as well. So fair enough. There are legitimate bearish things on the board, but again, my style just going from, it's not just my style, but like very common style, really. Just going from level to level, I would still kind of stick with as still relevant as it is. Could we be creating a falling channel right here and reaccumulate? Yep, possible, but will be destroyed again if we break about 95.50 on a 4-hour total closure, or a higher time frame below about 96. Pretty much the same shit that we've been saying for the last couple of weeks. So I wouldn't be really looking for too much. I wouldn't be looking for too much in these early morning hours. I do think that action a little bit more likely to happen, perhaps around Twitch stream time. Anyways, let's go check out expected moves chart and kind of come up with probabilities for this right now. So keeping in mind the critical areas of 95.50, 9,600 to the downside, then I'd say it is going to be a little bit interesting to see these preliminary areas that I've marked off as well. So I'll put them back in 98, 98.50 if you want to call it that. I do think that Bitcoin's going to bounce likely back up there and test around there, but that doesn't really do too much. Back above 99.50, that's where things start to get a little more interesting. At the very least, I'd look for another test of this ascending trend line in the 10.100, 10.200ish region. Anyways, let's go see how that lines up with the moves and what the biases should be for today. And what do you know? We do see that the 12 hour is actually showing a heavy bearish bias right here. I mean, of course, we did just put in a bearish engulfing dildo on not just a 12 hour, but also a daily as well. So, there are plenty of bearish things on the board. And this would be showing that the top side of the first deviation is coming in right around where that beautiful $9,800 level. So I do think, I do think that Bitcoin's going to give a test there. The question is, does it get rejected or not? And then we'll kind of come back in the lower term timeframes. By the same token, the bottom side of the first deviation is obviously well below that critical $9,600 number. So the probabilities are certainly on the side of a breakdown for today. It was actually kind of this, for the lower timeframes was the same yesterday, but now actually having macro implications, which is a lot more scary for the Bitcoin bulls out there. Anyways, looking at the daily expected moves, we do see that the top side of the first deviation actually not all that much higher than the 12 hour, coming in right around 98.50. So again, I would be, if Bitcoin does catch a bid here, does have a little bit of a bounce up, I'd be looking for a local, at the very least, a pullback from like a 9,800, 98.50ish region. If you are going to be bullish here, thinking that Bitcoin's just going to like flip back around, it unlikely, or at least less than 60% chance likely gets back above about 98.50 on a daily total closing basis between now and 24 hours. And again, to the downside, very similar to the 12 hour, we do see that probabilities are going to be angled quite literally for the for a break to the downside. I'm curious how the lower term timeframes are operating right now. Let's go down to a 4 hour. We do see that a 4 hour is showing the bottom side of the first deviation, again actually even well below that critical $9,600 number. Although on a 4 hour, I wouldn't really constitute a breakdown until it's like officially below about 95.50, maybe even 9,500. I think it'd be appropriate to be more conservative with this one. But the point is moot. It's still higher probability right here. And what do you know? We see the top side of the first deviation, even on this lower term time frame, coming in right around where? Right around 97.50ish region. So I do think marking the 12 hour the 4 hour, the 12 hour on the daily kind of together, I would say that I do think that Bitcoin's going to bounce up here, 9,800ish region, very likely, and I do think that is very likely to at the very least push back on that first attempt, and then we'll have to come back and we'll have to come back and analyze it. I wouldn't mind it if Bitcoin came back down to this blue box territory right here again. I'll probably do the same exact thing as I'm doing right now. But at some point, at some point the welcome will be worn out, and it's not going to look all that good. And but I don't think that happens today. Anyways, okay, let's go check out some of the other top shitcoins, see how they're doing, and perhaps we can come up with some more biases as this market typically moves together. And what do you know, Mr. Butyrol right on over here, actually operating as one of the better ones in comparison to the rest of the market from what I've seen. It actually held up valiantly yesterday, but is it strong enough to avert just the general trends of the market? Well, probably not. At least that's not what we've seen. That's not what we've seen in the past. But as it stands right now, we do potentially have higher lows being formed in place on the 12-hour, a time frame that actually I happen to give a fuck about. And as long as this area just doesn't break, you can't imagine that we just draw a trend line right here and we'd have something like this ascending triangle being formed over a longer period of time. So that would be more in line with contraction and consolidation, which I would expect to see historical volatility percentile agree with. And actually, we do see something similar to that. We do see that 12-hour historical volatility percentile is very, very red, suggesting that we're likely to go into a phase of contraction here. And I would say that phase of contraction is going to be a more or less healthy consolidation as long as Mr. Butyrol does not close any 12 hours on new lows especially, which would be had below about 250. Right here, it's a little bit more difficult though. We could certainly close below the 21 or at the 21. That's fine. Just don't want to see it below this trend line right here, which is pretty much actually exactly in line with the 21. So that is coming in right around 257. And as long as that area is holding, it is technically still an ascending triangle, which would be a bullish reaccumulation formation. And we also do see that hidden bullish divergence would be forming as well. Again, this is all coming off the back that historic volatility percentile suggests that we're probably going to go consolidate in this region. So if we are consolidating, it's probably not going to break, or it would say that we're less likely to break. Now I am curious to see how this one would look on the expected moves chart. Yeah, we do see 4 hours actually suggesting that is likely, but that's not what the market operates off of. 12 hours suggesting that it's a less than 16% chance to break down below 250. That's when this actually would enter into a downtrend here. So that is a little bit less likely, of course, a little bit more likely that we do kind of fill at this range without actually breaking a new low. So I would say that Mr. Butyrol, if he's something to go off of, would suggest that probably $9,600 break, or sorry, holds, bounces. 12-hour Stokes flip-flopping around, not looking all that good actually. Daily, same thing, not looking good. I'd say that momentum oscillators are certainly on the bearish side, and from a daily look, I'll just say this flat out. Really need this trend line here to hold, because from a daily look, this thing looks like it wants to come back down to like 240 or 235. Does not look good. Does not look good, but fair enough. See how the weekly is operating right now. Yeah. It's bad. Bad as it is, but a little bit too early to be judging a weekly, but still three trading days left to go. 4 hour, how we're looking at right around here. Do we have any divergences to be aware of? No, we do not. Fair enough. It's fair enough. All rides on that trend line. What about Mrs. Litecoin? What is she doing? We do see about the same chart as we do see on Bitcoin realistically. 12-hour is in a downtrend. I think daily is also in a downtrend as well. Yes, indeed it is. And if I'm going just solely off of Litecoin, I would be looking for another move back down to like 67 and a quarter. Again, the market moves together, so if the rest of the market wants to hold up above our current supports and bounce again, which I think does happen, I'd probably be looking for Mrs. Litecoin to test around like 74 and a quarter, 74 and a half bucks first before anything else. I would obviously get bullish back above 78 bucks and target a move back towards the prior highs of 83, 84 bucks. But right now we're kind of in a little bit of limbo. You do see that there's nice, proverbial support building in this region right here. Now I would say that if we're going to use a 4 hour dildo time frame like this, we could actually tighten this up just quite a bit. And sorry, let me get this area right here. This area not relevant. And this blue box would be akin to that same sort of blue box that we see on Bitcoin spot at about 9550 to 9600ish region, right around here. Kind of the same tails of two blue boxes right here. With a short-term move, I do think Bitcoin bouncing probably brings this baby back up to, I don't know, like 73 and a quarter to 73 and a half bucks. And then, of course, that next level right around, what was it, 99.50, the median of this range, doesn't really help all that much. It's going to be more of a flip-flop range. Anyways, what about the other top shit coins? How are they doing right now? How are they holding up? Let's see, Mr. Oh my god, sorry, not Mr. Buterol, but Mr. Ripples. How you doing, Mr. Ripples? It's not good, man. Definitely looking a little bit more on the heavier side. However, same thing right here. Do I think that we have the momentum to break this level down below about 27 cents? I don't know about that just yet. I think first and foremost, we're going to get a bounce back up to about 29 cents and then play out the game from there. Anywhere back above 30 cents, I'd actually be bullish on. But the weekly's it's a hard weekly to love as it is right now. And anywhere below about 26.68 is very, 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 very bearish, and likely it leads us back down to below 24 cents. Let's see, EOS. What's EOS doing? EOS already tagging the 21 exponential moving average on the weekly right here. So is that something to be attentive to? You know, golden cross obviously did happen. Are we just testing the golden cross, and is this going to hold up? Well, the great thing about this is that there's a very easy way to manage a trade in this region. As long as it remains above this horizontal right here, which is essentially in line with that 55 exponential moving average, coming in right below $4 even. Hard to look for that next major breakdown, but this one's kind of already had that major shatter into price action already. You know, again, that would be kind of equated to Bitcoin getting back down to the 8,500-ish, 8,600-ish level that we spoke about earlier on the weekly look. What about Tron? Tron at 2 cents even. Oh my God. Again, same thing right here. Point of critical failure would be, actually we can move this up just a smidgen here. Point of critical failure would be right below 2 cents actually. Higher time frame close below there would be more or less devastating. And I'd probably be looking for moves back down to 1.75, so 1 3/4 cent. Okay, what else do we want to look at? We can look at Forex really quick. Dollar yen. Ooh, nice move, getting that bullish continuation we were looking for last week, and meeting the blue box. So target has been met. Now here's the thing. This is a long-term area right here. I would now go to the monthly, and the monthly, remember, the monthly is what kind of made me bullish on this one. And so we have met that first target. I would likely be looking for a pullback off this region, but this is a very strong price action right here. We do see that monthly RSI is kind of flipping the corner, rejecting the bearish control zone back above the exponential, and we do see that monthly Stokes pointed up at the same time. I do think that it's after a little bit of a pullback here, we're likely to see this area actually shattered, and I'd extend that target, I'd kind of target this next area somewhere right around 113 and 3/4. Looks good. What about pound yen? I'd imagine that this one's probably having a move to the upside, and what do you know, it's having a move to the upside. It's the yen pair. They all kind of trade the same, and I do think that while we are testing the tops, this fucking chart right here, this is the goddamn money chart right here. all it's had to be is just this buyer in this area, seller in this area, and same thing here. I do think that this one's gearing up for an actual break of the top side resistance, and I do think that it's very, very likely to test the prior high at about 146. At that point, the monthly is going to look like a potential reversal, and we could expect we could potentially extend that to like 148 region. But for now, I'd probably just go from one level to the next, and 146 would be the next level if and only if we can actually confirm a daily little closure above, really realistically, this last local high right here at about 144.25. Gold in that 1610 target. I do think that it's actually going to reach a little bit higher into this into the deeper zone of this blue box territory, somewhere around 1630ish region. I'm essentially looking for that continuation, especially as long as we remain above the breakout point from this ascending triangle, which is actually driving this measure move up here. And longer term, I'd still remain overall bullish on gold. I do like this look, but this is also long term. I'd probably be looking for a pullback at around 1630ish region, but long term, on a monthly scale, I'd probably be looking for continuation. Really don't see much stopping it from. It's a little bit difficult here. I really don't see much stopping it from about 17. From like a monthly look, everything looks more or less good to me here. I really like a monthly RSI, very constructive. Euro dollar breaking down to new fucking lows, just beautiful, man. I do think that we see a bounce from this region most likely. However, I would be looking for that bounce to ultimately fail, and I would extend my downside targets probably down to about 106 to 106.5. So this one kind of just slowly but surely kind of melting down. What else we want to look at? Maybe GBDC really quick. See how GBDC operated on that last one. It's going to probably have a massive massive lower open right now, or sorry, coming into today, probably somewhere right around here, I'd imagine. The funny thing about GBDC is GBDC looks bullish as fuck here. GBDC actually looks bullish as fuck here. So perhaps one more point in the court of the bulls there. Again, especially as long as Bitcoin just doesn't break below about 9,600. Probably opens around the daily 10 simple, and I'd look for that to probably drive actually this bounce that I do think is probably going to happen a little bit later today. Okay, what about traditional markets? Oh, new all-time highs. What do you know? I remember coming into yesterday saying that we probably open Wednesday up and just kind of continue the crawl, and I do believe that's what's happening right here. Now, here's the thing: there is actually some bearish divergences forming on these lower time frames, and also we do have a little bit of a rising wedge or a rising channel forming as well. Now, let's see which one exactly is it. Probably something a little bit more like a rising channel here. Typically does break out to the downside, but that downside breakdown typically does not happen or is not going to be triggered until we actually break the bottom side support of this baby, which would be currently at around 336.5. If that were to happen, I'd probably be looking for a move back down to like 333.5, down around here. I wouldn't be that wouldn't make me bearish on traditional markets. It would only make me short term looking for a pullback. There's absolutely nothing bearish about this chart at all whatsoever. It looks really, really good to me as it is. I think that it's still got a little more continuation. I think that my last measure move was still pointed up towards a target of where is it? 345 region. Perhaps around there. I'd start to look for maybe local tops on like a medium and higher time frame. But for now, pullbacks I do think are regulated only to lower time frames. And I would essentially stand with that. I would essentially have that bias as long as it's remaining essentially above on a daily closing basis 334. Let me actually just move this up to reflect that. There we go, right there. And that is my disposition for now. Anyways, okay, I think we've spoken about everything that needs to be spoken about. Kind of wrap up these thoughts. Bitcoin, while that $1,000 dump is certainly very nasty and very it's like omnipresent, it's just looking you right in the fucking face. I actually am long off this area right here again, and I do think that Bitcoin probably bounces back up towards like 98, at which point I'll likely take a little bit of profit on that position. By the same token, if we actually do break 9,600 to the downside, that's when I actually do look at this as a confirmed reversal with targets not just down to 9,200, but likely continuation down to about 85, 86 more medium term. Probably takes months to play out, and then fun times again. Have to reassess at that point in time. Now, for the lower term timeframes right here, while I am expecting a bounce, it makes it difficult just again because in this medium term range right here, like nothing really changes. We're just filling this out, and as long as we're kind of filling this out, yeah, it is still kind of a falling channel. Now, the volume signature would not work on this, but I'm curious if CMEs would show something different. Yes, indeed they would. Yes, indeed they would. So CMEs would actually kind of make that one work and would hold on to would be better for holding on to bullish biases right here. So what I could say for the lower term timeframes is if we do get a 4-hour dildo closure or even like a 2-hour dildo closure back above, let's call it about 9,800, I would extend targets about another couple $150 to 9,950. Again, these are very tight ranges, not really relevant to anyone who's not trading, basically a day trader, I suppose. And then above there, if we could clear like 9,950, I would look for another move back up to test the top side resistance of this. Another, what is this, like $200 to $300 move to 10,150 to 10,200, and the game to kind of play out once again. Nothing really changes for me as long as 9,600 is not broken, or about 10,200 on a daily to close, or a 4-hour above about 10,400, I believe it was. So yeah, that's essentially what I'm sticking with right now. It does look a little bit nasty, but still, I would exercise caution in a region like this, just because they're just, I'm just not convinced. I'm not convinced of these moves until I see like a change of behavior. I know that, to say that sounds crazy when you're looking at $1,000 dildo, but let me just check the time. Holy shit, man, it's already been an hour. Sorry about that. Been rambling for too long. But my point is that, something really needs to change. Something tangible needs to change in order for me to start to angle my trades in that direction. So for right now, just playing the lower term time frames. And with that said, I'll be back on later with some more Twitch live stream analysis, plus some gaming action as well. And until then, I wish you well. Take care.